إن الحمد لله نحمده ونستعينه ونستغفره ونؤمن به ونتوكل عليه ونعوذ بالله من شرور أنفسنا ومن سيئات أعمالنا من يهده الله فلا مضل له ومن يضلله فلا هادي له ونشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له ونشهد أن سيدنا ومولانا محمدا عبده ورسوله أما بعد فقد قال الله تبارك وتعالى في القرآن المجيد والفرقان الحميد أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم وإذا بشر أحدهم بالأنثى ظل وجهه مسودا وهو كظيم يتوارى من القوم من سوء ما بشر به أيمسكه على هون أم يدسه في التراب ألا ساء ما يحكمون. وقال النبي صلى الله تعالى عليه وسلم لو أن أهل السماء وأهل الأرض اشتركوا في دم مؤمن لأكبهم الله في النار أو كما قال عليه الصلاة والسلام. Honorable ulama ikram, respected brothers and elders, in the previous Jum'ah we spoke about suicide and its devastating implications on society, and I coupled it with some statistics. Just to add to it, it is said that more Americans plan suicide than those who die as a result of the 5 deadly diseases combined. And like one brother told me after the bayan, he says, Maulana, that was a killer bayan. That was a killer bayan in the true sense of the word. In the same breath and in the same vein, a crime of similar proportion, if not greater, is the crime of abortion. And we must understand we are living in a society, in a country where unfortunately it has been legalized, and hence abortion clinics is a common sight that we see. While you and I frown on the pagan Arab, and rightfully so, for the stigma he suffered at the birth of his daughter, and we find it inconceivable for people to suffer a stigma at the birth of a daughter. Let us not forget, we none the better if not worse. We are none the better if not worse. Allah speaks about the pagan Arab, وَإِذَا بُشِّرَ أَحَدُهُمْ بِالْأُنْثَى ظَلَّ وَجْهُهُ مُسْوَدًّا وَهُوَ كَظِيمٌ. That when he was told that a girl has been born to you, ظَلَّ وَجْهُهُ مُسْوَدًّا, his face will turn pale, وَهُوَ كَظِيمٌ, and he will suppress his anger. يَتَوَارَى مِنَ الْقَوْمِ مِنْ سُوءِ مَا بُشِّرَ بِهِ. He will distance himself from society, leaving him with one of two options. أَيُمْسِكُهُ عَلَى هُونٍ أَمْ يَدُسُّهُ فِي التُّرَابِ. Either I keep this girl in my custody and live a life of humiliation and disgrace and suffer the stigma in that time as being the father of a girl, أَمْ يَدُسُّهُ فِي التُّرَابِ, or rather I dispose of her and bury her alive. أَلَا سَاءَ مَا يَحْكُمُونَ. Evil indeed were the choices they made. Under the commentary of this ayat, وَإِذَا الْمَوْءُودَةُ سُئِلَتْ, where Allah paints the picture of Qiyamah, and Allah says this innocent child will be given life. In Tafsir Jamal it is explained how brutally, mercilessly the father would take the little girl into the jungle, dig a hole, beautify that girl, and play with her, jump in, then he jumps out, she jumps in, repeat the procedure, and after a little while he drops his daughter inside, and then he covers the hole forever, and she continues screaming. Brothers, a person with half a brain will also frown on this nasty action, and rightfully so. But then on the other hand, in this so-called progressive era, across gender, whether male or female, pro-choice, in the name of pro-choice, in the name of birth control, there are so many abortion clinics that are around us, and we have become immune to it. There was a beautiful write-up of a woman that worked for the All Medical Clinic in India as a gynecologist, and she says, as part of my profession, it was my duty to perform many MTPs, medical termination of pregnancy, and I thought nothing about it until it was ultrasonically proven that the child feels pain, and the child experiences pain. And this left me thinking. For a moment I thought to myself, the child at the beginning of his universe, the sole occupant of his universe, satisfied in the solitary confinement of the womb, a would-be great human perhaps, or even an ordinary person, whatever he becomes, happy, jumping, kicking in the womb of his mother, knowing very well that my mother will risk her life. My mother will risk her life in giving birth to me. And then she writes, she says, "Oh foolish child, that is what you thought. Gone are the idolized mothers of the bygone days. The mother of today, she will not risk her life for you. She is the intellectual woman. She is the professional woman. She is the liberated woman who echoes speeches of equality. For her, your birth will come at the inopportune time. It will clash with a foreign tour. It will jeopardize her career. It will risk her future. So abort the child." That is the choice of the mother of today. But it's such a nasty thing. She cannot do it herself. She engages, I don't know if you can call it, the services of a gynecologist who will mechanically suck out the contents of the uterus. And as long as the child comes out as mincemeat, maybe there's no ill feelings. But at times when it is done at an advanced stage, as happens in China under the rule of birth control, and limb by limb, it pulls out and sucks out that child. And at that time, you ask that woman from that day onward, study the psychological implications besides the physical hazards that is a topic of its own. The psychological implications that will stay at that woman lifelong. Wallah, never in human history has there been a more gruesome murder as the murder committed against the defenseless unborn child. And we are living in a society that condones it. A society that has accepted. How many Muslim girls are having abortion being performed? The Quran says it is not correct for any Muslim doctor nor physician to have a hand in it whatsoever. You are not even at liberty to refer patients to an abortion clinic. You will share the sin in the process. وَتَعَاوَنُوا عَلَى الْبِرِّ وَالتَّقْوَى وَلَا تَعَاوَنُوا عَلَى الْإِثْمِ وَالْعُدْوَانِ. Assist in noble endeavors and not in evil things. Before I go into the prohibition of abortion, let us take a step or two back and look at contraception and birth control. As Muslims, we ought to know one of the primary reasons of marriage undoubtedly is the continuity of human race. That is why we get married. One of the primary reasons is the continuation of human race. And hence the Quran says, وَاللَّهُ جَعَلَ لَكُم مِّنْ أَنفُسِكُمْ أَزْوَاجًا وَجَعَلَ لَكُم مِّنْ أَزْوَاجِكُمْ بَنِينَ وَحَفَدًا. Allah has blessed you with spouses from amongst yourselves. And from your spouses, Allah has blessed you with children. And from your children, Allah has blessed you with grandchildren. Scholars explain what is the tone of this verse. The tone of this verse is to suggest that the institution of marriage is there to secure the continuity of human race. More so when the Nabi of Allah sallallahu alayhi wasallam says it emphatically, explicitly, تَزَوَّجُوا الْوَدُودَ الْوَلُودَ فَإِنِّي مُكَاثِرٌ بِكُمُ الْأُمَمَ يَوْمَ الْقِيَامَةِ. That when you get married to a woman who can give off tremendous love. Wadud, a woman that can give off tremendous love. Al-Walud, who can bear maximum children. Of course, to identify if she can give off maximum children, you will look at her family structure. You don't have a test drive to see how fertile she is. There's no test driving before marriage. You look at her family structure and from there you gauge. Nabi alayhi salam said, تَزَوَّجُوا الْوَدُودَ الْوَلُودَ. Why? فَإِنِّي مُكَاثِرٌ بِكُمُ الْأُمَمَ يَوْمَ الْقِيَامَةِ. The birth of every Muslim will enhance my pride and my self-esteem on the day of Qiyamah. When I will see my ummah come in numbers, in multitudes, in scores, you are bringing happiness to me. So rest assured, while the world might say birth control brings joy to this one or that one, having multiple children brings joy to the heart of Nabi sallallahu alayhi wasallam. So that is the first thing we need to understand. When we look at contraception, there are two portfolios of analyzing it. One is the reversible, one is the irreversible. In the irreversible, of course, the irreversible being totally unlawful and forbidden, there are two types. One is where a person institutes a measure where he destroys his potency totally. And in this regard, there are numerous ahadith which will explain to us the moderate perspective of Islam, how moderate a religion it is. The chapter comes in Bukhari, Babu ma yukrahu minat tabattuli wal ikhtisa, the prohibition of celibacy and castration. the prohibition of celibacy and castration, where Abdullah ibn Mas'ud radiallahu anhu says, we came to Nabi sallallahu alayhi wa sallam and said, O Nabi of Allah, we join you in jihad, we have noble endeavors, but at times we gripped up by our feelings and we are overwhelmed by the need of a woman, and at times it deters our spirit. Can we perhaps not castrate so that these thoughts don't bother us any longer and we can exclusively channel our talent in jihad? The intention undoubtedly was noble, but the method, Nabi alayhi salatu wasalam very vehemently opposed it. And he said it is totally unlawful and totally forbidden. The second hadith, Uthman ibn Mad'un radiallahu anhu comes to Nabi alayhi salam. O Nabi of Allah, I would like to devote my entire life to ibadat. And I don't want to have the difficulty of women and domestic related challenges. But at the same time, if I don't get married, there is the fear I become a victim of zina. So would you give me permission to adopt monasticism to start off with, O Nabi of Allah? Nabi Kareem sallallahu alayhi wa sallam answered him by saying, Inna ar-rahbaniyata lam tuktab alayna. Monasticism has not been ordained upon us. Hence, it is not an act of piety. And then he said, listen, Uthman, فَوَاللَّهِ إِنَّ أَخْشَاكُمْ وَأَحْفَظَكُمْ لِحُدُودِهِ لَأَنَا. None can fear Allah more than myself. And I am married. Hence, getting married is not against fearing Allah, but rather is part of fearing Allah. What did the Nabi of Allah say? إِنَّ الرَّهْبَانِيَةَ لَمْ تُكْتَبْ عَلَيْنَا. It's no act of nobility. And then Sahaba said, لَوْ أَذِنَ لَخْتَصَيْنَا. If the Nabi of Allah would have consented for celibacy, we would have castrated. But he said it's an absolutely no-go. The third hadith, Sayyidina Abu Hurairah radiallahu anhu comes to Nabi alayhi salam. O Nabi of Allah, I am poor, I don't have the financial means. I doubt I will able to adequately discharge the duty of my wife. I've said this before. Every man is responsible to sustain the needs of his wife and not the luxuries of his wife. Otherwise we all will be sinners. You are responsible to sustain the needs of your wife and not the luxuries of your wife. There's no end to it. O Nabi of Allah, I doubt I will able to sustain it. Would you consent that I do not get married, devote my life to ibadat? And we know he had devoted himself to hadith. He narrates 5,374 ahadith. Despite being married, he enjoyed the privilege of narrating so much ahadith. Nabi alayhi salatu wasalam said, you will have to, I do not give any consent for celibacy. It is totally forbidden. Hafiz ibn Abdul Barr writes in his kitab al-Isti'ab that in this regard, many other Sahaba also came and asked permission, but Nabi Kareem sallallahu alayhi wasallam declined. Allama Badruddin Aini rahimahumullah, who is the world famous commentator of Bukhari, writes, وَهُوَ مُحَرَّمٌ بِالْإِتِّفَاقِ, that to adopt any measure that will destroy the manhood of a person is totally unlawful, it is totally forbidden. We look at the other side of it, and that is the reversible measures. When we analyze the ahadith in this regard, then we find somehow the quotations stand at a neutral point without explicit indication of permissibility. Likewise, there is an emphatic explanation of prohibition. It's somehow neutral with a slight inclination towards disapproval. It's somehow neutral with a slight inclination towards disapproval. I must also add by saying one of the tragedy of our times is that a person today picks up one hadith, isolates that hadith, and then arrives at the conclusion of permissibility. How foolish can a man be if he stands at the shore and he estimates the depth of the ocean? He's standing at the shore and he's talking how deep the water is. You will never dare do this here. You'll never pick up a book of medicine and start treating your sick patient or treat yourself. But today we find people in this very gathering, Allah forgive one and all, that will go direct. Maulana, but I was flipping through the Bukhari. And there again you're going through a translated version. Never mind to speak of the basic sciences that are required. You don't even know Arabic. The man comes to you, Assalamu alaikum Shaykh, kaif halak? Wa alaikum salam. You ask him the next question, I don't know more than that, my brother. I only know kaif halak, sorry. That is about all his knowledge on Arabic entails. But he wants to surf through the Bukhari. He wants to go through the internet and he wants to arrive at conclusions. If you feel yourself capable, why don't you apply that methodology with business? Why don't you apply it with your health? Why don't you apply it with everything else? Strange when it comes to hadith. You sidestep all the scholars and you are at liberty. There is a hadith in Bukhari, oh, there's a weak hadith. I can only say you are the statistics of the prophecies of Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam if that is the attitude of any person. So when we analyze the ahadith in this regard, we find the first hadith narrated on the strength of Abu Sa'id Khudri radiyallahu ta'ala anhu, where he came to Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam and he said, "O Nabi of Allah, I have a slave girl and she sees to my domestic chores, and I have relation with her, so, that they had captured through jihad, would it be permissible for me to practice the action of azal? Azal, a polite translation of which will be withdrawal. There are medical terms to explain it, but I'll choose to use this word now. Withdrawal, would it be correct for me, O Nabi of Allah, to exercise withdrawal with her so that she doesn't conceive, it doesn't hamper her domestic duties? Nabi Kareem sallallahu alayhi wasallam gave an answer with a sense of ambiguity. Ma alaykum alla taf'alu. Whether you do it or not. The words of Nabi alayhi salam. Whether you do it or not. Ma min nasamatin kainatin ila yawmil qiyamah illa wahiya kaina. Every soul that is meant to be born till the day of Qiyamah will inevitably be born, regardless of the measures you institute. Another hadith of Nabi alayhi salam, Ma min kullil ma'i yakunul walad. It is not every semen that produces an issue. It is not every semen that produces a child. وَإِذَا أَرَادَ اللَّهُ خَلْقَ شَيْءٍ لَمْ يَمْنَعْهُ شَيْءٍ. And when Allah has decreed the birth of a child, nothing but nothing will stop Allah from creating that child. Third hadith in Muslim Sharif, Jabir radiallahu anhu says, one person came to Nabi alayhi salam, O Nabi of Allah, I have a slave girl and I would like to exercise precaution with her. Would you consent for me to do this? Nabi alayhi salam said, اِعْزِلْهَا إِنْ شِئْتَ فَإِنَّهُ سَيَأْتِيهَا مَا قُدِّرَ لَهَا. Do whatever you so deem is correct. However, whatever children is destined for her, she will be the mother of so many children. Few months later, the Sahabi comes back, O Nabi of Allah, this woman has conceived. This woman has conceived. Nabi alayhi salam said, I had forewarned you that your planning will not able to avert Allah's decision in the favor of that woman. Another hadith that also comes in Muslim Sharif, Jabir radiallahu anhu, many people latch on to total permissibility on the strength of this quotation. But like I said at the very beginning, that it is incorrect to isolate one quotation and arrive at a conclusion. So he says that kunna na'zilu ala ahdi Rasulillahi sallallahu alayhi wasallam. We used to practice withdrawal during the era of Nabi Kareem sallallahu alayhi wasallam. When he learnt about it, he had not prohibited us explicitly from doing this. On the reverse side, we find a hadith that indicate prohibition. Also a hadith of Muslim Sharif narrated on the strength of Judama bint Wahab radiyallahu ta'ala anha, where she says some people came to Nabi Kareem sallallahu alayhi wasallam and they asked permission. Nabi Kareem sallallahu alayhi wasallam said, ذَلِكَ الْوَأْدُ الْخَفِي. That actually is bearing children alive on a discreet note. That actually is bearing children alive on a subtle note. And in one riwayat of Fathul Qadir, Nabi alayhi salam said, مَا كُنْتُ أَرَى مُسْلِمًا بِفِعْلِهِ. I doubt a Muslim will ever do this. I doubt a Muslim will ever do this. Hence, putting all the quotations together, scholars arrive at the conclusion that it is permissible due to certain reasons. However, it is not encouraged. It is not encouraged. We must also remember that at times a thing might have a degree of permissibility provided it is done with the correct intention. To space between children, undoubtedly there is concession in this regard from a Shari'i perspective. But what I want to stress here today is, unfortunately, we have interrupted in the system of nature. Now, if we look, there are a lot of doctors here, gynecologists and many other professional people who will give you a medical explanation better than I, that when a woman gives birth to her child, if she suckles very promptly for 2 years, provided she feeds very rapidly, this is what I was told by gynecologists here, please, I'm not a doctor in any position. If she feeds very rapidly, there is so many feeds per day, then the body will release a certain hormone which will naturally become a contraceptive measure. But today we're doing away with the suckling period because the mother has to go out. The mother has to. So if you look at the divine arrangements that nature has made, the divine arrangements that nature has made, وَعَلَى الْوَالِدَاتِ يُرْضِعْنَ أَوْلَادَهُنَّ حَوْلَيْنِ كَامِلَيْنِ لِمَنْ أَرَادَ أَنْ يُتِمَّ الرَّضَاعَ. Allah says, let the mother suckle for 2 full years. So if she abides to this diligently, then she won't have to take within the 2 years. If we look at the origin of birth control, we look at this movement when it was founded, the motive behind it. What was the aim that was being achieved and the slogans that were being chanted? It was founded in the latter part of the 18th century by the world famous English economist, need not to mention his name. But the theory that he had promoted was that the habitable place on this earth, after all, was limited, and so were the resources. And the production or the potential for human production was always impossible. If human race continued to produce in this manner, then at time it will find this planet too small to habit itself on this planet, and it will find itself restricted from resources. Now that should never be the viewpoint of a Muslim, because the Quran says very beautifully that يَعْلَمُ مُسْتَقَرَّهَا وَمُسْتَوْدَعَهَا كُلٌّ فِي كِتَابٍ مُبِينٍ. Allah has taken it upon himself, the sustenance of every child, and likewise the location of every child. And like at every instance, whenever man interrupted with the system of nature, there were the repercussion of that. Hence, there is a French author that has written in his book that while birth control has not made the institution of marriage redundant, none can deny childless couples are more prone to separate. Childless couples or couples with less children are more prone to separate. These are the direct implications of, trying to control the size of the family. So we find this is how it was founded, and this was the mission behind it. It is also written, an American author writes that while majority people claim to say that birth control is practiced for this reason or that, the true reason is to maintain their financial position, so that it enables them to provide their only child with the most superior education. To provide their only child, in inverted commas, with the most superior education. And that now brings me to the topic of abortion. If we look into the common reasons why today abortion is being performed, it's been performed in the thousands per day. There are 5 reasons why commonly abortion takes place, and you can bear me out on this here. They say the first reason, it happens as a result of poverty, where a person fears that I won't have the funds to sustain this child. I have 2 children, I've just conceived now. What should we do with this child? There is debate amongst the doctors with regards to the time when the soul enters the embryo. Islamically, very categorically, the hadith says it comes after 120 days. And of course, the spiritual implications of abortion after the child has taken the full form of a fetus is much more severe. The hadith of Bukhari substantiates it very beautifully. Nabi alayhi salam says, يُجْمَعُ أَحَدُكُمْ فِي بَطْنِ أُمِّهِ 40 يَوْمًا, that you are formed in the womb of your mother. For 40 days you remain a sperm. ثُمَّ يَكُونُ عَلَقًا ثُمَّ يَكُونُ مُضْغًا. Then 40 days it remains a blood clot. Thereafter 40 days it becomes chewable flesh. And Nabi alayhi salam says, after 120 days has lapsed, Allah sends the angel. The angel comes with 4 things. يُؤْمَرُ بِكِتَابِهِ بِأَجَلِهِ شَقِيٌّ أَوْ سَعِيدٌ بِكَتْبِ رِزْقِهِ وَأَجَلِهِ وَعَمَلِهِ وَشَقِيٌّ أَوْ سَعِيدٌ. The lifespan of this child, the sustenance of this child, the destiny of this child, whether fortunate or wretched. So at this point, the soul is transmitted into the child. And hence, scholars explain, to claim the life of a child after the soul has entered the fetus, that crime and the crime of killing a Muslim on the earth is equal, there is no difference. Hence, just as it is a major crime. Let me just tell you for a moment, before I tell you the common reasons of abortion, what is the severity of the crime of killing one Muslim. If you study the Quran cover to cover, against any crime committed against man, a sin committed against man, I doubt you will come across more stern warnings for any crime committed as there is for committing the crime of killing a Muslim unjustly. There are 3 reasons when the killing of a Muslim is justified, and the hadith explains that. But for un-Islamic reasons, Nabi alayhi salatu, the Quran says, وَمَن يَقْتُلْ مُؤْمِنًا مُتَعَمِّدًا. I wish you could appreciate Arabic and run your mind through the grammar in these words. But nonetheless, I will try my best to adequately translate it. وَمَن يَقْتُلْ مُؤْمِنًا مُتَعَمِّدًا. Whoever kills one Muslim intentionally, understanding aborting the child and the Muslim on the road is equal, there is no difference. That woman is not at liberty, it's not her prerogative to terminate the life of that child. I will explain to you the dignity Islam gives to life. Life in any form enjoys honor, enjoys dignity, and we will leave it. That person who kills any Muslim, فَجَزَاؤُهُ جَهَنَّمْ, his punishment is Jahannam. First. Number two, خَالِدًا فِيهَا, he will dwell in Jahannam forever. Ibn Abbas radiallahu anhu, on the grounds of this ayat, says there is fear that that person loses Iman. For the simple reason that the torment of eternity in Jahannam is exclusive to the infidels. While the majority of scholars hold the view that eternity here denotes a lengthy period. خَالِدًا فِيهَا وَغَضِبَ اللَّهُ عَلَيْهِ, Allah becomes angry with him. وَلَعَنَهُ, Allah curses him. وَأَعَدَّ لَهُ عَذَابًا عَظِيمًا, and Allah has prepared a very, very severe punishment for such a person. The famous incident of that woman in Bukhari who committed the act of zina, Imra'atul Ghamidiyya. She comes to Nabi alayhi salam, Ya Rasulullah, inni zanayt, I have committed zina, so purify me. And Nabi alayhi salam turns his face away. She says, O Nabi of Allah, I have proof of my crime, I have conceived. Now look at the dignity of life. This woman needs to be stoned in relation to the crime perpetrated. But the fetus developing in the womb of this woman is innocent, and Islam affords this child the dignity of life. Nabi alayhi salam says, come back to me when you've delivered that child. Come back to me when you've delivered that child. We cannot kill this child because of the crime committed or perpetrated by the mother. She goes, after delivering the child, she comes back. The Nabi of Allah says, and what happens to the suckling period of this child? Get this child onto solids and then come back to me. After what was the piety of this woman? I can cry. Brothers, let us not look at the mistake she made. You and I have made 1,000 mistakes worse than that. Let us admire her for her sabr. Let us envy her for her sabr. When the child was on solid, then the Nabi of Allah said, now execute the law of Allah. Sahaba started stoning her. And then Khalid radiallahu anhu made a comment when some blood splashed onto his body and he, showed a sense of dislike. Nabi alayhi salam said, Mahlan ya Khalid. Khalid, hold your tongue, don't look at her like this. Allah's qasam, she must make dua. 70 people's maghfirat will be made now. Hold your tongue and watch what you say. So anyway, the dignity of life, the respect of life. I was speaking about the 5 common reasons of abortion. The first is out of the fear of poverty. I wasn't able to sustain this child. In Islam, this is not permissible at all. When those women came to pledge their allegiance to Nabi alayhi salam, the Quran speaks about the oath of the woman. Ya ayyuhan nabiyyu idha ja'aka al-mu'minatu yubayi'naka ala alla yushrikna billahi shay'a. O Nabi of Allah, this delegation of women are coming. They are going to make the following pledges. Listen to them out. Number 1, we will never ascribe partners with Allah. And I hope every mother listening to me now is making that pledge between her and Allah. And every brother as well. وَلَا يَسْرِقْنَا, they will never commit the act of theft. وَلَا يَقْتُلْنَا أَوْلَادَهُنَّ, they will never abort nor kill their children. Nabi alayhi salatu wasalam, they came, they made this pledge. Nabi alayhi salam from behind a veil accepted it and then made dua maghfirat for them. So the first is to kill a child out of the fear that I don't have finance. In Islam, this is not correct to abort for the simple reason that we believe we are not the sustainers of that child. The sustenance of that child is coming from Allah. Yes, it's coming via us. But we've seen so many times a man dies tragically. Do these children die with hunger? No, Allah reroutes the sustenance of that child. It was coming via the father, it comes via the brother, comes via the uncle, comes via the mother. Sustainer is Allah. It's coming via you. You are not at liberty to abort. In fact, we learn from the hadith that many a times the seniors are sustained because of the juniors. وَهَلْ تُرْزَقُونَ إِلَّا بِضُعَفَائِكُمْ, because of the poor you are getting, because of the weak. So that is not correct. The second one is that woman who aborts. Why? Because of illicit relation. The third one is the figure-conscious woman. I'm not ready to settle down with the family. The fourth one, who is a rape victim, provided there isn't any provocative behavior on her part, we'll sympathize with her. Recently, the judge made a ruling that there is a passive rape and aggressive rape. And the fifth one is the abnormal fetus. Let's just look at it. My time is out. Let's look at the common one, the illicit relation. They have in a relation, the woman has conceived. I cannot tell you, I'm inundated with calls. I can cry my heart out. How many Muslim girls have phoned me one-on-one to say, today one girl phoned me. Today one girl. Maulana, I got involved. This is what has happened. I can't tell my father. If I break the news, it will be Qiyamah at home. What do I do with the child? Where do I go? Abortion is being performed on young girls. Let us look at the illicit relation. I was astonished to find out. I just heard a program on radio the other week that there is an operation that calls themselves the Cheaters, and they have a website, and they would probe an alleged, an alleged accusation of infidelity against your partner, and they're operating nationwide, and they charge 3,500, and they'll get you footage to prove it, and he says because of the pressing demand to prove infidelity of the other partner and to process the case. This has become common, and Muslim people are also featuring. You look at the reasons of rape. Instead of one crime leads to another, instead of giving them permissibility to abort it, we need to curtail. You look, I was reading some statistics, I don't have time to elaborate. The 3 most pornographic magazines, the 3, I don't want to mention it in the house of Allah. Conservatively, it has been said that enjoys 50 million readers monthly across the globe. The 3 most pornographic magazines enjoys 50 million readers monthly, which has direct implications on this abortion. You study the physical implications, the psychological implications of abortion. There is startling statistics between the alarming rate of breast cancer and abortion, and there is correlation between the two. That when the system has been interrupted, millions of cells in the chest of that woman is left at risk to develop cancer. And this is happening more and more common. I leave you with the hadith, the Nabi of Allah says, لو أن أهل السماء وأهل الأرض اشتركوا في دم مؤمن لأكبهم الله في النار. If the dwellers of the skies and the dwellers of the earth unite to claim the life of one child unjustly, Allah will defend this innocent soul, and Allah will take revenge, and Allah will throw everyone headlong in the fire of Jahannam. Let this be a deterrent. We call upon our sisters. Let us learn to discipline ourselves. Let us learn to understand what are the implications of this year. This is just but one ploy of the enemies of Islam. Sin upon sin, vice upon vice, it is continuing. May Allah Ta'ala safeguard our society, our daughters, our mothers and our sisters. We understand life comes from Allah. The Quran says, Man qatala nafsan bighayri nafsin, faka'annama qatala an-nasa jami'a. You have killed one child unjustly. Rest assured you have murdered humanity. وَمَنْ أَحْيَاهَا فَكَأَنَّمَا أَحْيَا النَّاسَ جَمِيعًا. You have saved and protected the life of one individual. You have protected humanity. And that is the viewpoint of Muslim. In Islam, it is not permissible abortion under any circumstances. There is some debate with regards to a rape victim. That also in the first 3 months, scholars have explained it in great detail. Allah grant us the correct understanding. Wa akhiru da'wana alhamdulillahi rabbil alamin.